And it's very difficult, Tembekile, to be covering such stories where you literally are now having to interview families as they continue with their grieving process. I'm literally sitting next to Peggy Dlamini here, Umzinyathi, who is mourning the loss of her brother, her 37-year-old brother, Lwazi Dlamini, who was disabled. And so when the house collapsed during the floods, he was unable to escape or run away. I'm going to ask my colleagues for, and we've asked for permission to do this, Tembekile, a picture of Lwazi Dlamini to put a face, to the name. And siyabonga kakhulu Peggy ukuthi uvumele ukukhuluma nathi. Siyabona ukuthi uzilile uhlezi kumatras. Siyaxolisa kakhulu ngesigameko senzekile. Mhlambe nje ungachaza ukuthi kwenzakaleni ngesikhathi kufika ikhukhula namanzi nakunetha imvula.
Ngesikhathi kufika ikhukhula kuye kwawa indlu lwamshaya umfowethu uDonga lokuqala wathi uthi uyazama ukukhasa. Masibuka kusho ukuthi washawa ulwesibili umnyango wesibili wa umuntu olimele walala esibhedlela wase yadlula ngesonto bengasakhuluma esibhedlela ngoba ubelimele kabuhlungu eshayeke nasekhanda naseinhlangothini wase yadlula ngesonto esibhedlela eMagandi.
Njengoba ke elimele ubeyedwa ekamereni usushilo ukuthi ubekhubazekile bengakwazi ukuhamba. Mawucabanga nje mhlambe if bekuzotholakala usizo mhlambe usaphila manje.
Yebo ngabe usaphila kuba wathola usizo. Wayeyedwa ekamereni lakhe. Wayeyedwa kasi eshawa uDonga lwendlu.
Njengoba sekwenzekile lesigameko nje mongasitshela as umuntu ohlala la eMzinyathi usizo seluke lafika kumndeni ositshela ngiyazi ukuthi kade utshela ubuholi beDA ngendaba yama toilet osichazela kabanzi ukuthi isimo senu njengamanje sinjani.
Hayi cha bebengakafiki beqala nje ngeDA ukuthi kufike abazosibona akekho beke wafika ngoba sinanenkinga nje ukubona yama toilet namanzi asinawo. Nama-toilet ethu agcwele. Iningi lethu bomakhelwane nje ama-toilet ethu agcwele. Amanzi-ke siwahluphekela kakhulu ngoba umuzi owodwa anakhona asanda kuphuma afike ekseni emini awasekho. Fune siwaphuthume ekseni sigcwale kuwona lowo muzi aphele futhi.
Ama-water tank amavatekani awafiki nje.
Ayi awafika afika ajike lapha ezansi thina ngala kuthina awafika siwagcina lapha kaBhinga phesheya. Kala ngakuthina bengakaza afike. Yebo.
So since nje nina njengoba kade kunemvula nje since last Monday anikaze nize neba namanzi.
Cha sikaze sibe namanzi afika komakhelwane nje abakude nathi.
Njengoba ke ngiyacabanga ukuthi sengizama ukuyihlela for amalungiselelo omngcwabo. Umeya umxolisi Khawundo announce izolo ukuthi imali lezi ezakhishwe eMotepe Foundation kuzokhishwa 15,000 ukuze nikwazi ukungcwaba. Mawubuka mhlambe nizokwazi uku-applyela lokho isimo senu sikanjani nani nizocela ukuthi banisize ngokugcoba ubhotweni.
Yebo singacela ukuthi basingcwabele ubhotwethu ngoba la ekhaya akekho umuntu osebenzayo. Yebo kuyena obehola impesheni ke nobaba lula egcekeni hola impesheni.
Okay, so namhlanje kufike ubuholi beDA baniletheleni nizizwa kanjani njengoba ke kufike umphathi omkhulu uJohn Steenhuisen nomphathi wala esifundazweni uFrancois Rogers nethimba lakhe.
Ngawu sijabule kakhulu sisi. Ngoba besumuzi nje ohlwempu nje bengekho lutho. Siyabonga kakhulu kwiDA. Isenzele nje kukhulu kabi. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Ilona luphusizo ke enizolidinga going forward njengomndeni.
Abebengasiza ngalo ngoba ke sikwazi ukuchaza kodwa nje bengaba namandla ukuthi basisize ngako singajabula kakhulu futhi singabonga. Yebo.
All right, Tembekile, that's Peggy Dlamini. She is the sister of the deceased Lwazi Dlamini, and I'm going to ask my colleagues, Bongiseni, to pan to my left to show you what the Democratic Alliance has brought to the Dlamini household here today. They've brought some groceries, which the family says they're extremely grateful for, and you'll see the leadership of the Democratic Alliance. They've just been sitting here listening and trying to get an of what the needs of the family are at this stage. And Peggy Dlamini was just explaining how she believes her brother would still be alive if he had gotten the necessary assistance on that night. His room, I should say, actually collapsed and he was disabled. So he passed away on Sunday after sustaining severe injuries, including head injuries. And so this is the kind of situation that many families are facing. I asked her whether or not there'd be one of those applying for the 15,000 Rand relief that eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda announced yesterday as a part of the government's interventions to assist families with the burials, and she said she would be open to that, but she's open to any kind of assistance across party political lines. I think at this stage it's not a moment for politicking, and it's a moment really for everyone to come together and assist in any way they can. Perhaps just give us a moment, Tembekile, so that Sibongiseni can stand up and we'll move to the leadership of the DA. Maybe they can tell us what interventions they'll be able to bring to the family immediately. We've already seen, the groceries that you've brought here. But Mr. Steenhuisen, obviously it's not an easy situation right now.
No, not at all. And obviously this sort of brings into sharp focus the human tragedy of a disaster like that. We've seen damages to buildings, we've seen damages to infrastructure, but this is damage that has torn a family apart, and this is really the sharp end of a disaster like this. And it's not an easy thing to be able to come into a home like this after such a tragedy, and I think it shows you the human element. But I think there's a lot that needs to be done. I'm noticing outside there's no stormwater drainage system on any of these roads. So the stormwater is just allowed to flow wherever it goes. And what's happened is it's flown from the road here straight through the homestead here and down into a gully at the bottom. So we're going to have to look at the way we design infrastructure now. You can't just put a road in with no stormwater. Obviously, to try and get the local PR council here to assist with the access to the 15,000 Rand grant, and Francois has been speaking to the family about that. And then obviously to try and make sure this doesn't happen again, and what measures we can put in place in terms of infrastructure to ensure this type of tragedy doesn't happen again. But certainly this is the hard part.
I think, what we know is that this is not going to be the end in terms of families that are torn apart like this. And I think, whilst the family is very grateful for the groceries that you've brought, I think the other concern is the sustainability in the next week and the weeks to come. Money is not coming in as easily as one would have anticipated. So what will the DA be doing together with other political parties through the various mechanisms that you have to ensure that this is something that's sustainable until all of these families are back on their feet?
Well, obviously we've got local representatives here in the form of councillors and activists who will walk the journey with the family. Obviously we've made a very small contribution today to just bringing some short-term relief, and it's by no means going to sustain for a long period. But it's about walking the journey with them, and our public reps will stay in contact with this particular family to see what can be done, but also just talking to people outside this homestead on the way in. A young man unemployed. Unemployment is a huge problem in this community. We've got a 42% unemployment rate in the country. Large parts of this community are just not working, and there's no money coming in. We've now got rising food prices, which are going through the roof as regard to the Russia-Ukraine matter, and we've got fuel price increases that are driving up the cost of basic foodstuffs. So we've got to get the economy moving in, we've got to get people into work, and we've got to be able to have local economic development. My worry, however, is when you have a situation like this where there's no water, what's going to come next? Is it going to be cholera? Is it going to be dysentery? And then you're dealing not only with the mopping up of a natural disaster, you're then dealing with a health epidemic that will break out on top of the COVID pandemic that we're still are trying to deal with. So we've got to get water into these communities as quickly as possible.
All right, Mbekile, that's John Steenhuisen. He's still in the Mpungoza household where Peggy Dlamini is mourning the loss of her brother, 37-year-old Lwazi Dlamini. And really, we're talking about the sustainability of most of these families. The damage that has been done is not going to be fixed overnight, whether you're talking infrastructure, whether you're talking water and sanitation, whether you're talking human settlements. Government says they're looking for state land to move people onto, but no commitment to timelines as well. I think that's a concern. So we'll see when there's that special sitting in Parliament next week, as well as the various meetings that are going to be taking place over the next couple of days, as to whether or not the government and all relevant stakeholders really have a hold on the situation, and how soon then are things going to start moving with timelines that the government can commit to.